Welcome to another episode of Ask the Pastor. My name is Will McVeigh. I'm part of the session here at Chestnut Mountain Presbyterian Church, and I'm here with Rick Holmes. Rick, so we've got this big process going on, transition. Give us an overview of where things stand right now.
Okay, well, we are wrapping up the first big phase of and that is the assessment process. And so let me just pull back the curtains a little bit and be sure that everyone has a sense of what's taken place. So we have asked all 46 of the current formal leaders whose names is on the back of the bulletin to do a leadership self-assessment. And that's the elders, the deacons, the staff, and the women's leadership team. And they answered 23 questions. They were essay questions. Some of them wrote paragraphs and some of them wrote just some phrases. But they answered questions like, why do people come to Chestnut Mountain? Why do people stay? What reasons might have people to leave? What are the strengths and the weaknesses of the church? They were asked to assess the spiritual condition of both the leaders, their fellow leaders, as well as the congregation. And that generated probably about 125 pages of data, getting their view, getting the comprehensive view from the leadership of the life of the church. And then we invited the entire congregation to take a survey. So there's about 600, 10, 20 members in the life of the church, and 315 surveys were returned to us. Of those, so that's a little better than 50%, which is an excellent response for a survey. And so everybody was invited to do that because everybody's a stakeholder in the future of the church. And then we invited 70 people to do an interview. So when that survey was done with the congregation, there were about 90 questions, of which each group answered about half of them, that were biblical statements. Some of the statements were statements that you could say were aspirational. We should, pray every day, right? Or we should be sharing our faith, or we should show hospitality to one another. And then there were statements that ask, are we doing these things one way or another? And those various questions rolled up to help answer and give a picture of the spiritual health of the life of the church in a number of categories. Everything from our love for God, which would be expressed in our worship and our involvement in worship, to are we demonstrating hospitality with one another. And so hospitality is a part of how it is that we express our love for one another. The people you love, you are in their homes. And so on. And the session got those results at a high level. They got their scorecard, their report card, if you will, at their May session meeting. And out of that, out of that report card, we, Matt Bowling, the director of Flourish Coaching, wrote a series of custom questions for the church. So when we go into a church, one of the things we want to do is we want to create an interview so that we have more than just numbers, but we get insight into what's behind those numbers. And we also get the voice of the congregation because we get quotes from people and we flatten them out and we disguise them so you can't attribute them to somebody. Because we've learned that often having the voice of the congregation expressed to the leadership in short quotes enables the leaders to to see more clearly what's behind the numbers, and it's more impactful for them. This is not just numbers, these are people. These are people that love Chestnut Mountain, that love you. So we invited people to participate. Somebody's asked the question, why didn't I get a chance to sign up? Well, it's because we invited people. And the way for the interview. And so we ended up interviewing about 65 people. Nancy and I did about 1/3 of those interviews. And I can tell you, everybody who participated in an interview loves Chestnut Mountain. And in the course of the process here, we wanted to get a sample of kind of every group in the life of the church. So we looked for people who were supportive of leadership, who weren't so supportive, people who'd been here for a very short period of time, and in 5-year segments, people, so we would see people's perspective over time in the life of the church. We asked to look at young people, people who weren't in the primary ethnic group in the life of the church. We asked for young rising leaders. We intentionally asked to interview younger people. We wanted to get a good picture of how they saw the church. Where did we get those names? Well, we asked all 46 of the formal leaders to give us names in each of these categories. And Mindy collected those. There were over 200 names that were submitted. And then I asked 5 leaders, 3 ruling elders and 2 members of the staff who know the church well, to choose 6 people each out of those groups. Those 5 sets of responses were put together, and that generated a list of people to ask if they'd be interviewed. And that also generated more than 100 pages of information. And so why this is so important is that every search committee needs to have an accurate picture of the life of the church to create a pastoral search profile, as well as to be able to describe the church to someone else. And as much as you might think that you know your church, Chestnut Mountain's too big for any one person to know it well. And so one of the really important things about doing this is that it allows the search committee to have really a comprehensive picture. And would you want 7 people or 9 people describing Chestnut Mountain, or would you want to pull together an accurate picture of the church?
Absolutely, a lot of people, a lot of information. I'm learning a lot in this process myself, so it's a lot of information that you're gathering and culminating and processing. So it's been very helpful and eye-opening for me.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that everyone in the church should feel really good about is that the elders made this decision to open this channel of communication. So the elders have invited the congregation to speak to them through the survey and the interview process. And that allows the session to really hear what the congregation's thinking in a pretty broad way. And I think that to me, when people listen to me, well, let me ask you, how do you feel when people listen to you? When they ask, what do you think, Will?
It's a blessing. It's a blessing. The communication process goes 2 ways. And when you feel listened to, you're encouraged, you're empowered.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it communicates, I respect you, I value what you have to say, you're important to me. That's part of what I think it says. So I think that gives you, we've pulled the curtain back a little bit so everybody can see what it is that's been happening with the assessment process.
So we're gathering a lot of information. I guess in the next coming Ask the Pastors, we're going to learn more about this communicating process and what the congregation can do to be more active in that process.
Yes, we will. Thank you, Will, for being here.
Thank you.